Support for Headline Humboldt is made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, the U.S. Coast Guard deploys off the coast of Humboldt County to rescue an ailing child from a passing cruise ship. Also, we interview Magnus Finch, a community member who was caught in the maelstrom of the April campus protests against the ongoing war in Gaza. He made a film about it. And we'll hear a report from Ryan Hudson on the community meetings held to inspire healing and dialogue following those protests. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. We've covered the violent protests on the Cal Poly Humboldt campus against the ongoing war in Gaza several times from several different angles. And tonight, we'll go back to that subject with our interview and with coverage by local reporter Ryan Hudson of community conversations inspired by those protests and the conflagration and suffering that continues now in Gaza. Given that many of these charges were dropped and life goes on in Humboldt County, some may ask why we keep returning to this topic. Here's my best explanation. Attending university and getting an education is often the time in people's lives where they begin to solidify their identity. They experiment with various points of view, push hard against barriers and other forms of authority, and establish the morals that will help to shape who and what they become in the world. The radical 1960s were a tumultuous time full of violence and rage, hope and vision, pain and freedom. Millions of Americans came of age in that decade, and the experience of participating in such a cultural convulsion has stuck with them through the rest of their lives. It was the center point, the fulcrum of their development, and for all those students who participated in the Cal Poly Humboldt protests, their experience will likely be the same. And how the community reacts to their efforts and how we all act in the face of an ongoing humanitarian atrocity will either lift these students up or tear them down. Our reaction and how we center this debate determines everything about the character of this country and of its people. It could define for a lifetime what these young people believe about American decency. Our guest tonight, Magnus Finch, will join us shortly to talk about his film of the protest. But first, the news. An 8-year-old child was evacuated from the Royal Princess cruise liner off the Humboldt County coast Tuesday after suffering an appendicitis. The ship was located 20 miles off the coast when the evacuation occurred, and video of the rescue was shot by rescuers. The Coast Guard was alerted at around 7 a.m. by Coast Guard Sector Columbia River, who relayed the ship's request for evacuation. An MH-65 Dolphin helicopter was launched at around 8 a.m., retrieved the boy and his family, and transferred them to St. Joseph Hospital in Eureka at around 9:40 a.m. Without regular and significant dredging, cruise ships are unable to access Humboldt Bay.
Nice delivery. She's got pretty good visibility, Marty, so yeah, just elevators, almost pretty straight down here. Roger. 70 feet above the... And basket is on deck.
The recent 3-day community conversation about the April Gaza war protests at Cal Poly Humboldt left some in the community feeling underwhelmed. The event was put together by staff from the University and College of the Redwoods. Reporter Ryan Hudson has the story.
The 3-day town hall style forum, organized by Cal Poly Humboldt and College of the Redwoods, centered speeches by local faith leaders and academics on the topic of Palestine and Israel. The stated goal of the event was to be an informative community conversation, although local pro-Palestinian activists say that the event organizers failed to emphasize war crimes currently taking place. Dan Shahin, a local Palestinian community member, provided his direct perspective to give balance to the program.
When you let ancient prophecies and religions dictate how you treat other people, other humans, and deny them their heritage, you tell me I don't have, you tell any Jew from anywhere in the world they can go to Israel today and be a citizen and in fact start colonizing and start occupying the occupied territories, but my family, who has 600, 500 years plus history in the region, I have no right to move there. And that's the core, that's my trauma, is that I see every day the state of Israel breaking international laws.
Even though the community conversation event was put together in response to the university protest of last spring, students and activists told me that they simply were not invited to participate in the panel.
I wasn't really surprised that we weren't reached out to, but yeah, I know that they planned this event for months, so just the fact that there was like one Palestinian speaker. We're a very visible organization that's very active, doing lots of film screenings and panel discussions and educational and cultural activities. Right. We're very easy to contact. So, I mean, it's deliberate, and we knew just based off of the agenda that it was just going to be a normalization event, normalizing Israel's existence, their violence against Palestinians, and that's very much what this event has been.
At the closing of the third day, moderators under pressure made space for activists from Humboldt for Palestine to address the crowd.
The youth, you must understand, have clear eyes to witness injustice. They don't accept arguments of nuance or false claims of ancient religious tensions. They clearly identify right and wrong, just and unjust, and call it by name. I truly believe that is because the youth have been educated so deeply about the Holocaust that we can so clearly identify and take action against the Holocaust of Palestinians by Israel.
For Headline Humboldt, this is Ryan Hudson.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Join us for Leonardo da Vinci Day on Saturday, September 28th at the Humboldt County Library. Enjoy a fun, family-friendly event with hands-on activities for kids inspired by Da Vinci, presented by KEET TV, the Kiwanis Club of McKinleyville, and the library. At noon, join Headline Humboldt host James Falk for a screening of the new Ken Burns documentary Leonardo da Vinci, followed by a panel discussion with local experts. You can register at keet.org.
This travel moment is made possible by viewers like you. Stay tuned for more information.
Joining me now is Magnus Finch, a local filmmaker who was on scene during the recent protests and made a film of his experience. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So now you recently premiered your film at the Richard's Goat Tavern, right? Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but that's got to be exciting. Let's start with how you initially got involved in this. As our previous conversation between us indicated, you've wanted to be a filmmaker, but then this situation arose. Tell me the story of how that came to happen.
So I was working, or I was basically gathering material to create a documentary beforehand, and I already had like a camera set up, mic set up, all that stuff. And I had gotten a call one night on the 22nd of April saying that students and police were clashing. So I felt like since I had the equipment and the opportunity, I should document this.
Yeah. Now, what situation did you encounter when you first arrived on the Cal Poly Humboldt campus?
So when I got there, the police were actually leaving at that time. And Ryan Hudson, actually, who was previously mentioned, got the footage for when the initial conflict happened. And she also ended up getting some of the ending footage that I was luckily able to get from her. Yeah.
Should they basically, Redheaded Black Belt and her with her YouTube channel allowed you to use some of their footage, right?
Exactly. The Redheaded Black Belt, I contacted them as well as Ryan Hudson just to ensure that it'd be okay that I used some of their footage.
Yeah, that's good. That's the appropriate thing to do there. Now, so what happened over those 5 days or 7 days for you in terms of how you spent your time and what you were able to gather by being on scene?
So I was Basically, it started off with me just having to miss a couple days of work, and I wasn't sure how long this protest was going to happen. So I ended up actually having to leave my job to pursue this documentary.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with students learning how to properly film this event, because obviously students didn't want to be, on camera. Yeah. And it was a difficult, thing to figure out, just talking to people and being like, okay, making sure you get your permission before ever putting a camera on anyone.
Yeah, because they were worried that they would eventually be identified and then
Exactly.
held accountable by law enforcement in some way, right?
And there were lots of moments within the filming process where they were allowing like media moments, I guess, so everyone was aware that media would be around with cameras and would be masked up or, not easily identified.
Yeah. Now we talked about it, you got hundreds of hours of footage.
Yeah.
What particularly sticks out to you from your experience there? What are some of the more dramatic moments, seeing as how you missed the arrests and the major conflagration at Siemens Hall? What stood out to you as dramatic on its own terms?
Well, the most dramatic moments, I would say, are the detractors that ended up showing up. It was pretty clear pretty early on what they were trying to do when they showed up doing what they were doing. And you'll see in a clip coming up how aggressive some of those people were towards the protesters.
Yeah.
And also, I would say one of the most important moments that while I was filming was just when all of the protesters had like a group hug. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was really like an emotional moment.
Yeah, poignant.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's roll that clip of the film that we have and take a look at what we can see.
It seems like a lot of tension going on right now, but it's all love. It's all love.
Does nonviolence work? It does. Yes, it does.
It's that false narrative about students being dangerous that allows law enforcement to show up with weapons in billy clubs and assault people. What I appreciate is the love you have for people who are truly struggling to survive, who have seen so much death and are still threatened with death themselves.
People are locked up, life without parole, want to know what's happening on this campus. A couple nights ago, I watched armed police charge students and faculty, and then they had to leave with nothing. That doesn't happen.
You're not anti-Semitic. You're anti-genocide, and you're anti-fascist.
Our generation has a lot of problems that we've inherited that aren't necessarily our fault.
This is what makes this movement beautiful. Different races, different classes, nationalities, students, alumni, community, faculty.
You're supposed to accept the violence and the humiliation, and you're supposed to take it. When you take it, that's what makes things change. You have to take the abuse. You don't give it out. What do they do in that situation? They use a lot of rhetoric. They change things around and they manipulate words.
You should write about these. You should tell the stories to your children and to your grandchildren. These are stories to be documented.
I drove 13 hours to see this shit.
Go to Gaza, go fight.
Go back to Texas.
I actually have high respect for you guys for being calm and talking with me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking to you, but the thing is other people are not the same. When you say like death to Palestine,
the officers not believe you or not? No, I mean, you were wearing a jacket that identified you as a member of the news media. They just didn't think you were a reporter, or they didn't care you were a reporter.
They didn't care that I was a reporter.
Wow, that's really cool. Looks visually really impressive. And there were some pretty powerful moments caught in there. Can you talk a little bit about the one that you were mentioning before the show. What was happening at that moment when there was that sort of confrontation happening?
So basically, there was a lot of weird confrontations, to say the least. One of them was a guy was just going up to people, telling them like, everybody, you know what this is? It's something about like people being Marxists or jihadists or whatever, like just labeling everybody. And then people were just like, you need to go. I'm sorry that you're, you know, sorry about your opinion. It's fine, but
it's not fitting with what we have going on.
And
here.
then he like pulled out a rock from his pocket.
Oh wow!
And it was crazy. Like just asking him to leave kind of like brought this whole added, like, I don't know. And he started getting in people's faces. And
potentially more and more violent and aggressive, right?
And there was, he shouted some racist things, to say the least, on his way out, and said, like, the cops are on my side, which is pretty crazy.
Well, as I was mentioning to you, when I was up there for, a couple of hours on the day after they actually, 2 days before they arrested folks. And I was met at the edges of the place where all the protesters were by a really well-spoken gentleman who walked me through the protest, explained to me what his position was, said that he doesn't necessarily represent anyone else there, but that it's a collection of people who are like-minded about the war in Gaza. And there was no violence that I saw, no major disorder. There was some vandalism, but mainly it consisted of like stacking furniture up and some minor graffiti on the walls, some chalk on the walls and stuff, but it was not what had been portrayed as this massive, chaotic, violent scene.
Definitely not millions of dollars of damage like they seem to be claiming.
Yeah, and you were saying that maybe that was perhaps the...
Due to, I was thinking if they're going into the millions, it probably because of how much police they had sent there.
Yeah.
It's like,
lots of, thousands of dollars for sure just to get those police out there. And,
and a lot of them not even from this county. Like a majority of them not from this county.
Yeah. Now you were aspiring to be a filmmaker, and then you obviously made this film, and you got hundreds of hours of footage and had to winnow through that. When you had a premiere at Richard's Goat Tavern, can you talk a little bit about that feeling of, having worked on something, had an aspiration, having made the film, and then watching people watch it? How was that experience?
It was like a dream come true, to be real. Like I don't even really know how to fully describe it, besides it just was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience, you know?
Did you have any feelings about the war in Gaza prior to this? And did this change your mind, or did this help underline your own opinion? Did you end up learning a lot about the issue
I definitely
there?
learned a lot. I would say that my opinion hasn't really changed too much, and my opinion as a filmmaker I don't think matters too much on the issue, but I will say that I agree with the UN's decisions and their thought process on how there are war crimes being committed and terrorist acts being committed by the Israeli government.
Yeah. Did you have anybody that you knew as friends or anything that were involved in the protest, or was it all mostly people that you encountered as you were there?
Mainly mostly people I encountered while I was there. I definitely gained some friends while I was there as well.
Yeah. What would you want people who see the film to walk away with as sort of a lesson or a theme that you were trying to capture?
I would like people to think about how our First Amendment rights are being treated in this day and age, with protests being shut down and the way that police are pushing out press. It's actually illegal under Penal Code Section 409-7 of California Penal Code, as well as our First Amendment rights.
Now, there were a couple issues in particular around the First Amendment that happened here. One was there was a reporter arrested, correct?
Yeah.
What do you know about that story?
So apparently the KCRA3 reporter was arrested outside of the scene, but they told her that she wasn't allowed to be there, which is false.
Yeah.
And from there, she was arrested, taken to the courthouse, and then or holding section, whatever it is. Then the sheriff came in and said, yeah, you're not under arrest, basically trying to cover up the situation.
Back it up a little bit, yeah.
Save themselves, you know.
Now, you were telling me also that you missed the final moment near the arrest because of sort of First Amendment issues.
Exactly.
Describe that for the viewers.
So, like, I was attempting to come in, and there was this large barricade, and I just could not get anything that, they were telling me, like, you need to leave or you're going to be arrested, and made it very clear, especially with my camera, that you cannot be filming right now.
What did you say to them in response? Could you say anything? Or?
I kind of attempted to, but I was already so tired as well, and I was just like, I felt like I couldn't go in at the moment without fear of them confiscating my footage that I already had. But I did do backups. It was just kind of a scary situation, and I probably should have pushed harder, but
Hindsight's always 20/20 in those instances.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about your process. How did you go through the footage? Did you watch every single shot that you ended up getting, or did you know prior what you wanted to do? How did that work out?
I definitely sat there and watched everything all the way through.
Wow. How long did that take?
That took, I mean, the editing process has taken months, you know, like just going through the footage though, probably a month to get to like 3 hours of footage that I wanted to use for sure, and then trim down from there, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, but more about the process. Were you able to, how did you begin to organize like a through line? Because one of the things about making a movie, I mean, like I said, made a really bad movie at one point, and having that consistency in a flow, a narrative flow, how did you sort of build that in your mind and keep that momentum going?
So with this documentary, I think chronologically, it was the easiest way to go about it. I separated everything into days so that people could follow as things happened day by day.
Yeah.
And see the progression of the protest, what was actually happening at the protest versus what was being said about the protest.
Yeah. Now, I haven't seen the whole film yet. Are there consistent characters sort of that you follow through, or is it mainly all around kind of view?
It's kind of an all around thing. There are some consistent characters, but you probably won't be able to tell that they are consistent characters because, well, I mean, there is one, but a lot of faces are blurred.
Yeah.
Like the faculty member, I don't want to mispronounce his name, that was arrested and went on a hunger strike. He's definitely a reoccurring character.
Yeah.
And there are some others that are just unidentified that are also very much so reoccurring characters.
What did you observe about the relationships on campus? I mean, you mentioned the professor. Did you notice a lot of tension or a lot of support from faculty towards students? Were there even faculty around? Because I know the university made an effort to keep faculty sort of out of the protest arena.
There was, well, he was definitely there every single day throughout the protest. But when it comes to the rest of the faculty, they were there for like the first 3 days at least, a decent number of them, like maybe 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And some of them were speakers that you might have seen in the clip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And universally then, from your perspective at least, supportive. No one was out there as a faculty member?
Not that I saw. I didn't see any faculty coming out and being rude to the students, no.
Now, having gone through this whole experience, what would you do differently if you had to do it all over again in terms of your own like deployment and shooting of the film? Did you learn about what might have worked better as a process because you were putting it together on the fly?
Definitely. I think so a lot of it, since I had to film everything like right there was no like, you know, you have to film in the moment. So I wish that I had maybe held the shot a little longer on certain things or did certain other things that I didn't have to compromise with editing later.
Yeah.
You know, but, and yeah, just a lot of organization in the beginning of the editing process, learning how to do that, and would have probably benefited me, but thankfully
how do you anticipate that, right? I mean, like you were dropped into the middle of that. And
exactly, but I think a big part of it would be like organization next time.
Yeah.
Because that would just help with the whole editing process on a documentary like this.
I mean, the final question I have to ask before we get into like where people can see it. It's interesting, you know, in that moment history is unfolding. You know, you hear this thing is going off, it's popping off. You decide to go, and then at a certain point you decide, I'm going to quit my job because this is more important. Seeing this through is important. What inkling did you have that this was going to turn into something important for yourself that led you to make that determination?
Mainly the students, just how passionate they were and how things were being covered as well. Because like I could see that there wasn't a lot of the things that were happening during that protest were not getting coverage like they should. One of the students' heads were split open and they needed five staples in their head, which I don't think anyone even really knows that happened. Like,
and you've got that in the film.
Yeah, it's actually Ryan's footage that has that in it.
Wow.
And there's, what was it? The fact that the KCRA 3 reporter got arrested, I don't know how that's not getting even more news coverage. It was only a local showing that they did of that one broadcast.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah.
Now, if people want to see this, your YouTube channel, is that where people can see a rough cut, or is it not up there yet?
It's not there yet, but I'm not allowed to put it on YouTube fully until after my festival run, essentially.
So where's the first festival that it might?
The first festival that it might go into is the Sacramento Independent Film Festival, and then the Los Angeles Independent Film Festival, and then hopefully Slam Dance.
Yeah. And this could potentially launch the next phase of your filmmaking career.
I would hope so.
And we talked, you've got other projects in the works that you're thinking about. And that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming down and for all your hard work, for making what looks like a beautiful film.
Thank you so much.
And telling a story that I think that a lot of people think they know about, but maybe has more to it than they were led to believe.
100%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for this evening. I hope you all join me at the Eureka Library on Saturday, this Saturday, tomorrow if you're watching on Friday, at noon for a special KEET TV event. We'll kick things off with a preview screening of Ken Burns' latest documentary, Leonardo da Vinci. Then we'll dive into a conversation with Lonnie Grafman, Carol Keeg, and Lindsay Kessner about how Da Vinci's incredible work still inspires us today. This is a free event, but space is limited, so be sure to register at keet.org. Hope to see you there. Stay tuned, stay informed.